Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So, as some of you will have seen, I recently did an interview with Yvie Oddly over on my separate interview channel where she spilled a lot of backstage tea about her time on the show, particularly All Star 7, and she revealed some major things that she's never really talked about before. And the interview got quite a lot of traction and it was picked up by several news outlets and it also did the rounds on social media. And although I did release some shorter clips of the interview on my interview channel, I know that a lot of you don't necessarily watch my interviews because you prefer shorter and quicker paced content. So I thought I would do a quick recap of the interview on this channel with just the juiciest parts of the interview. I'll also put a link in the description to the full interview, as there will be some interesting stuff that I won't be able to include in this video due to time constraints. But make sure you do go and check out the full interview as well. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so Yvie started off by saying that one of her inspirations for getting into drag was Sharon Needles on season 4 because Sharon was so different from other drag queens that Yvie had seen before. Yvie then said that she started trying out for Drag Race as soon as she was old enough, which is 21, and she auditioned for the show 3 times before getting on season 11, meaning that she must have auditioned for seasons 8, 9 and 10. However, Yvie did say that even if she hadn't got on Drag Race, she would have continued evolving her drag, and she even admitted that she, quote, might be a better artist if she had never got on the show. We then talked more about her time on season 11, and Yvie joked that she would never have had any arguments with her castmates if they had just been cool with the fact that she was an alternative queen and you don't need to be pretty to win Drag Race. And we'd already seen that type of alternative representation on Drag Race in previous seasons, so Yvie was surprised and also frustrated that she got so much resistance about it from her fellow sisters. But Yvie did admit that she was, quote, an asshole on season 11. She also said that she felt, quote, drained after she won season 11, and she felt like she had nothing left to give for the rest of her reigning year. I then asked Yvie about her many arguments that she had on season 11, such as with Silky, Raja and Vanjie. Yvie said that out of all of the fights that she had with Vanjie in Untucked was the most surprising, and Yvie said, quote, holy F, I didn't see that coming. And the reason for that is that she and Vanjie had a very sisterly relationship up until then, and there was, quote, deep hurt in the competition at that point, and she felt like her sisters were, quote, attacking her. Yvie also explained that the reason she had fights with many of her sisters was that she felt like they weren't being real. However, Yvie said that she's probably closer to Raja, Silky and Vanjie than anyone else on the cast. We then talked about Yvie's iconic lip sync against Brooke Lynn, and Yvie said that she was so sad that she had to do Snatch Game because she bombed it. But she was excited to get to show her other performance abilities because that's what she came on the show to do. And also it was a chance to prove all of the claims that she had made in her audition tapes about her lip sync abilities. Yvie also said that although she couldn't see what Brooke Lynn was doing because she was focusing on herself, she knew that Brooke Lynn was one of the best ever dancers, so she really had to give it her all. Yvie also joked that she's not one of the best lip syncers though, so don't look at her actual lips too much during the lip sync because she probably didn't know all of the words. I then said to Yvie that in some of my other interviews, such as my interview with Cynthia Lee Fontaine, Cynthia said that back on her season, they filmed the Lip Sync for Your Lives twice. For example, the lip sync against her and Robbie Turner, they filmed that more than once. And I asked Yvie if it was the same on her season. However, Yvie said that for every season that she's ever been on, it was, quote, a one and done type thing, and they only ever did it once, which is why it was so exciting but also terrifying. Which is interesting because maybe it means that they used to film the lip syncs twice back on the older seasons, like on season 8, which was Cynthia's first season, but it looks like maybe they don't do that anymore. I then asked Yvie what she thought were her chances of actually winning season 11. Yvie said she felt more confident in the lead up to the finale because at the reunion, Brooke Lynn had kind of, quote, broken Vanjie's heart, and so this may have counted against her in the eyes of the fans. But Yvie also joked that it may have gone differently in the finale if Brooke Lynn was, quote, smarter with her one last reveal. But Yvie said that she never really expected to win, even though she felt like she did deserve to win. I then asked Yvie about a rumour that has been circulating for years, which was that Yvie's winning line was originally something about eating a baby, but apparently the show felt it was too inappropriate and made her re-record it, and instead Yvie said, quote, "Fly your freak frag." Yvie confirmed that this rumour was 100% true. She explained that she always felt like the winning lines are, quote, "some of the fakest bull bleep ever, and it's so weird to make the queens pretend to feel something in that moment." Because as we all know, they film each of the finalists pretending to win, and then in the final edit, they just choose the one queen who actually won. But Yvie said she hadn't really prepared anything to say because she didn't expect to win, so she just said, quote, "go eat a baby." Apparently this was a joke that had happened during the season, and one of the judges had said to Yvie that she should just eat a baby, and they kept joking about it throughout the season, and that's why Yvie said it at the finale. And apparently when she said it, they said to her, quote, "oh, we're going to need to retape that's too vile." And Yvie said she questioned why. Is it because it's a joke about eating bodily fluids, or is it because it's about killing babies? Either way, they laughed about it during the season, but now that it's at the finale, it's not okay. Yvie also said the reason she messed up the pronunciation and said "fly your freak frag" rather than "fly your freak flag" is because they wouldn't let her be herself and say her original line. And Yvie joked that you got a, quote, "sham of a winner" because they wouldn't let her be her authentic self. We then moved on to All Stars 7, and I mentioned that after All Stars 7 aired, Yvie had posted a few things on social media which implied that she was not happy with her edit. For example, in one Instagram story, Yvie said she wished that you got to see the, quote, "real journey that they experienced." And in another Instagram story, Yvie said that she had been, quote, "lobotomized and presented as some goofy big deed mascot, bravely laughing through my chronic illness." So I asked Yvie what were her real thoughts about All Stars 7. Yvie said that this is 100% how she felt, and she does go into more depth about it in her new book, All About Yvie Into the Oddity. But she wants to just lay it all on the table, and she said that she went back to Drag Race All Stars to have fun, and she didn't think that she was ever actually going to win. She also thought it was going to be a fun victory lap for all of the winners, and she'd get to show how she'd grown since season 11. For example, Yvie said she'd only learnt to sew a few years before, and for All Star 7, she made about 90% of the outfits she wore, although you never found out that fact on the show. However, Yvie said that what you saw as the audience was not exactly what it was like on set filming it. Yvie explained that she's not sure if the judges were a bit burnt out from filming so many seasons, but Yvie said they judged her even harsher than they did on her original season, but none of that was shown. Yvie then said, quote, "they said some things to me that are probably still going to stick with my annoying little brain for the rest of my life that don't need to, because they didn't air, they weren't made for TV." I then asked for an example of one of the unaired harsh critiques that the judges had given, and Yvie said the one critique that seared into her memory was, one of the judges said that she hadn't figured herself out yet and that she doesn't know herself, and she hasn't grown as an artist since her original season. And Yvie said she thinks that that's not something that you should say to a winner or someone who's representing your brand. Yvie also repeated that perhaps the judges were just a bit burnt out and that maybe they didn't get the memo that this was supposed to be a victory lap for the winners, and maybe that got lost in translation. But what they ended up getting in the edit was the judges were trying to build them into America's next drag superstar instead of celebrating the things that already made them superstars in the first place. I then mentioned that perhaps the judges' critiques were too harsh, and maybe that's why they didn't end up showing them in the final edit, because on All Star 7 there weren't really many negative critiques, it was pretty much always positive. And Yvie joked and said, quote, "I don't even think they were mean as much as it showed the flaws and where they maybe shouldn't be judging." Yvie explained that there were times that the judges would say things like, quote, "oh, we can't say that word anymore, I don't know if you guys knew that." But Yvie said, quote, "if you actually paid attention to any of the queens who came through your show, you might know what this winner has been doing in their time." Ultimately, Yvie said she wished that the version that was filmed was the version that was shown, because, quote, that's what we were promised, that's where a lot of my bitterness came out of. And that's what stirred up Yvie to write those social media posts that I showed earlier. And it was also because she had to deal with a lot of, quote, secret little trauma on her own terms because it looked too dirty for World of Wonder. I then asked if Yvie ever got in trouble with World of Wonder for posting those critical comments. Yvie then said that, quote, getting into trouble is a hard term because WoW really is there to help the queens and give them a platform. So she said no, she didn't get into trouble, but she did have to have conversations with them where they asked her, quote, why the F are you saying this? And Yvie's response was, quote, because this is the first time I'm speaking to you and I won your show. I then said that I thought Yvie came across really well on All Star 7 regardless of all of that. But Yvie said that that was part of the problem and that on season 11 she did not come across well, but that is authentically who she is. And although she's glad that they showed the more, quote, chipper side of her on All Star 7, the fans had, quote, no reason to root for me on that season because I was lacking the push of what I was actually fighting against, the struggles I was actually going through, which were with the judges, they were with production. And you can't make a TV show about that unless you're making a TV show about the show. I then asked Yvie if she regretted going on All Star 7, and she said no because she still had a positive experience in terms of competing with the other queens. And even though the judges, quote, didn't seem to give a bleep, she still got all of the positive feedback and reinforcement from the other queens. And she also got another chance to show the world what she can do, so she's forever grateful that she was able to be on the, quote, coolest iteration of Drag Race ever. But she just wishes that it could have been different. I then asked about one of the big mysteries of All Star 7, which was the rumour that a reunion was filmed for All Star 7, but WoW stopped them from airing it. Yvie said that it is true and the footage does exist of the reunion, and it was hosted by Bob the Drag Queen. And Yvie joked that one day the FBI will hack into Bob's computer and release the unaired All Star 7 reunion. And in the reunion, for the most part, the queens just, quote, aired their grievances about how the competition felt rigged, and we get affirmations from the one person that it would have mattered from. But she joked and said that it doesn't matter because it doesn't exist until Bob dies. Yvie also clarified that they did the reunion on their own without World of Wonder, and it was an in-person reunion. She also said, quote, who would have guessed this, but a bunch of winners secretly had more things to say about the season than what was ever shown. And for the most part, 90% of what the queens said at the reunion, the audience probably would have just said, quote, ah, okay, and it would have made sense. I then asked Yvie if she could share a little nugget of something that was said at the reunion, and Yvie said she'd already kind of said the sorts of things that were talked about, but she added, quote, the only nugget I can give that'll get any sort of context anywhere is, Jinx Monsoon agreed with us. And although Yvie didn't say this, it's assumed that what she said earlier about, quote, we get affirmations from the one person it would have mattered from, sounds like she was implying that Jinx agreed with the others that the season felt rigged in Jinx's favour to win. The only other thing that Yvie said about this was, quote, can you imagine the impact of Jinx Monsoon coming out and saying, I agree with you, in a reunion about all these people who otherwise could have been edited as jealous and just trying to tear her down. And Yvie joked and said, quote, that would have been impactful if such a thing existed. I then asked Yvie to spill some backstage tea from her time on the show, as my channel is called Drag Tea Served, and it's a question I ask all of the queens. Yvie then told a funny story, and she didn't specify if this was on season 11 or All Stars 7, but she said that as we know, RuPaul wears sweatpants and sliders behind the counter, and that's very common knowledge. But apparently, one time someone cracked a joke about this during the judges' critiques, and RuPaul laughed, and she went to lift up her leg above the desk to show the queens that she was wearing sliders on her feet. But she must have raised her leg too far up, and RuPaul ended up falling backwards and completely fell out of her seat. Yvie then laughed and said, quote, "I got to see RuPaul's sweat-panted feet fly over her fully made-up wig, and I wish that was in the world so bad." Yvie also said for a second they were all worried when it happened because they wanted to know if RuPaul was actually okay, but she was fine, and Yvie said that it was the hardest that she'd ever laughed on the show ever. And I mentioned that I have talked about RuPaul's sweatpants in my videos before, and there was even a freeze frame moment in one of the Untucked episodes where you can briefly see RuPaul's sweatpants as she's returning to the judges' table. We then moved on to the subscriber questions, and one question that came up a lot was whether it's true that RuPaul really didn't gag when Yvie did her wig reveal in her lip sync against Raja, because in the edit they cut to Ru looking really unimpressed. Yvie said that's genuinely how Ru reacted, and Yvie's not sure if Ru was, quote, "over my bleep" by that point, or maybe she just hadn't had her coffee enema. But RuPaul's reaction was 100% real, and Yvie said this is why she thinks she lost the lip sync. And in fact, Yvie said she had lost her wig previously at the beginning of the season during the girl group challenge, and the judges, quote, "hated that." And so Yvie decided to wear that wig one more time during the lip sync against Raja. I then asked Yvie if she did that because she felt like she wasn't going to win regardless. Yvie said that at that point, the judges had already made it clear to her that they, quote, "didn't think my drag was on par with the girls. I apparently didn't deserve to really be a winner." So Yvie said she was under no illusion that she had a chance of winning. But the sick part is that Yvie was ready to go home by that point, but when they told them that they were doing a lip sync Lollapalooza, Yvie was excited because it was a chance for her to show people that she can lip sync and that's what she's good at. But ultimately, Yvie said it came down to how the fans felt between Raja and Yvie, and in the end it was, quote, "always going to be a losing battle for Yvie." And finally, there was a question about the fact that Yvie had once tweeted saying that she didn't get her prize money for over a year after she won season 11. Yvie said, quote, "it's true, it ended up being a large series of miscommunications," and she said the tweet is still up on her account because it's the truth. I then asked for clarification whether Yvie did get paid in the end and if it was a year late. And Yvie confirmed that it was about a year later, and she said, quote, "there might have been some time in between the check clearing and people thinking I was $100,000 richer." So there you go, there was a recap of all of the juiciest moments from my interview with Yvie Oddly. As I said, there is a lot of information that I left out in this video due to time constraints, so make sure you check out the full interview because Yvie did go into more detail about some of this stuff, so I'll put a link in the description and the pinned comment to the full interview. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this interview recap, and would you be interested in me doing recaps for my other interviews? And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really, really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. In the You're a Winner Baby tier we have Alan, Anna, Ashley, Bailey, Emerald1508, Ethan, Josh, Kat, Lisa, PC Smush, Rachel, Rochelle, Shelby, Shara and William. And in the Shantae You Stay tier we have Amy, Becky, Brennan, Charlie, David, Emmy, Kerry, Linda and Stephen. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really, really appreciate it and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!